Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are going to be doing a little repainting, and you guys are going to get to follow along with me as I repaint this Amber Collection Dilophosaurus. So, without further ado, we're going to get started with a base coat. We're going to give it a base coat in Territorial Beige, so let's do that right now. So we have our base coat on of the Territorial Beige. Next we're going to use a little of this raw umber, and we're going to apply it because the person who I'm painting this for, a good buddy of mine, really wants it to kind of have like less of a flashy look, kind of a darker coloration for the most part, with a little flashiness in the tail and the crest. So we're going to go ahead and apply a good bit of this to the figure. So I've got that brown all over the model for the most part, on the upper part, not the underside. The underside is still the Territorial Beige, but I haven't applied it really thick. Like I've kind of, some areas, like specifically in the tail, I've kind of dry brushed most of it on there to try to leave some of that Territorial Beige to show up in between the cracks. I think that helps to make the model look pretty realistic. And then on the frill, I have also painted the frill with this raw umber color, but when I put the initial Territorial Beige kind of base coat on, I left it sort of thin so that some of the original coloration of the frill could still come out, and you could still see some of the like reds and yellows within, and then lightly dry brushed over top with the raw umber so that the kind of reddish coloration and the yellowish coloration still sort of shows up, but very light and just very subtle variations of those colors are showing up in between. And I've done the same thing here with the frill when it's in a kind of relaxed position, so that will help to give a little color variation to what I'm trying to achieve with this model. Now, since he wants it kind of dark, I'm going to take some pavement and then I'm going to apply some of this in certain areas just to give it a little more color variation and also darken the figure up a little bit more than what it already is. Also with the pavement, I'm just going to really lightly dry brush this over. I'm wiping most of the paint off here on this napkin down here, this paper towel, so that I can kind of lightly dry brush this over so it's not an overwhelming amount on the figure. Now I'm going to take some of this raw sienna coloration and I'm going to kind of try to use it to sort of blend the color, this darker coloration, as it transitions to the lighter coloration here for the underside. I'm going to try to put some of this throughout the figure to just kind of give it a little color variation and more of a natural blend within those colors. Now I'm going to lightly dry brush some of this khaki onto the underside to really highlight the underside, lighten it up a little bit. Okay, even though it's a little hard to actually see the label there due to the paint that's kind of dripped over it, this is Tuscan Red, and we are going to apply this to the crest of the Dilophosaurus. person that I'm painting this for did want it nice and dark. I feel like it looks pretty good overall as far as the dark coloration goes. And now we're just going to start to paint some stripes on the tail because he wanted a little bit of flashiness to the tail area of the Dilophosaurus. So we're going to use some watered down khaki to start out the stripes. So we've got the stripes on the tail, and now we're going to use a toothpick to give very small stripes down the crest. I'm going to do this off camera because it's going to be something that I need to be pretty precise, but it's just simply using black paint and a toothpick to give stripes down across the crest of the Dilophosaurus. So it may not be the best lighting at this point to see it, but I did put some stripes and as well as some little speckles here and there up here on the crest of the Dilophosaurus, as well as lightly dry brushed, and I mean very lightly dry brushed, some black over top of the scoots down the hands just to kind of elaborate the fingers a little bit more. And I also very lightly applied some black to the middle of the spine here of the Dilophosaurus, just from this point here up to the top of like the neck area, just to kind of again give a little more color variation, sort of highlight the spinal column of the dinosaur in a very subtle way. But I think it actually looks pretty good so far. I'm also going to actually use some of this pewter gray to dry brush down the toes as well, just again to highlight the toes a little bit, make them pop a little more, just kind of bring the detail out in a little bit of a nicer way. Something that I'm also going to have to do off camera just because it's really precise the way I have to apply it, and I really have to kind of get nice and close and like really pay attention to what I'm doing. So again, we're going to put some of that just down the scoots here of the toes. Now I'm going to take some of this King's Gold. Again, my paint bottles are a little beat up, but I'm going to take some of this King's Gold and I'm going to apply it to the inside of the frill, pretty much all over in here a little bit, to just kind of give it a little bit of a flashy look. I don't want this one to be overly colorful because again, he wants more of a natural, kind of a darker appearance to the Dilophosaurus, but I feel like the frill of course would have to have a little bit of a brighter look to it, so we'll get some yellow in there. It actually might kind of transition into a green by the time I'm done with it. And now I'm going to take some more of this Tuscan Red, which you almost can't see the title of yet again, and I'm going to kind of bring it in from the outside of the frill a little bit and just kind of bring it in, and I'm not sure if I'm going to stripe it in or just sort of give it a very strange design. I'm not entirely sure until I kind of start to work with it and see how it looks, see what looks best. We'll figure that out here in just a second. Also, my suggestion for kind of transitioning between colors in more of a smoother fashion is something that I like to do. I like to dab it as opposed to brushing. So just kind of give it really nice light dabs, and lighter the closer you get into the other color. And it usually transitions really smoothly into the next color in more of a lifelike and realistic way. So I actually ended up just kind of giving the outside rim a tone of that Tuscan Red, and what I think I'm going to do, I kind of changed my mind halfway through there. I'm going to take some black from the center of the frill, and I'm going to stripe it out from the inside to, again, just give it a little bit of flashiness, but still keeping it kind of dark. So now I've kind of taken that black and I've striped it out from the inside, and now what I'm going to do is just add like a ton of black speckles all over the frill to, again, just give it a little more color variation and make it something that's a little bit more of a standout on the figure. So my final steps were kind of really small ones that I didn't feel like really needed to be filmed or anything, because I thought it was fairly obvious how you do it. But I did just add a little bit of extra red to the relaxed frill, just so then it kind of matches up with the frill that is elongated and opened up, because you can't really tell exactly what it would look like once the frill is closed. So I just kind of added some color in there to sort of make it look, I guess, about as close to what it would potentially look like when it's closed as the open one here. And then the Dilophosaurus itself, we did paint the eyes. We gave it a nice yellow, if it would focus on it, a nice yellow coloration there for the eyes, nice black pupil, real simple. I also painted the nostrils there to highlight the nostrils to make sure that they jump out at you and look, you know, nice and realistic as well. And then of course the nails here on the feet, which I painted with a black, and then I took a little of that raw sienna color that we had seen earlier and just really lightly dry brushed it over, starting at the tips and moving in, kind of lightening it and transitioning it into the black the further into the feet we get. It's really subtle, just barely shows up in the final product, but I feel like it, you know, it just gives a little extra color, adding it a little extra level of realism. And then I also very lightly dry brushed some black around the stripes just to give the stripes a little extra color. I felt like it didn't look quite as nice as it would with, again, the black kind of outlining it very lightly. Just dry brushed that on there with a black coloration. But other than that, I feel like the Dilophosaurus turned out pretty decent. It's not one of my most colorful repaints, but that's not what my buddy was asking for. He kind of wanted a darker paint scheme on it. And hopefully this video will help some of you guys. I've had a lot of requests for tutorials on how I paint, and I hopefully helped you out with this video. I don't know how good my tutorial actually was or how much it will actually help you guys, especially because this is one dinosaur in the many that I've painted. So every dinosaur really is different as far as the way you paint it and the way it will turn out and everything. So hopefully, again, this will help to give you guys at least a slight idea on how I paint my figures. And other than that, the only thing we have left to do now is just check out a few shots of the final product here at the end of the video. And as always, let me know in the comments if you guys liked it. Other than that, check out the final product of the Dilophosaurus.